Hello, Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity, and today we're going to talk about endometriosis, which affects some 10% of women and can lead to pain, dysfunction, infertility. It can create an awful lot of problems, but I was actually a little surprised to see just how high the numbers were. But there are lots of things that can be done to help with endometriosis. Before we get into that, make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel. So that being said, most cases of endometriosis are from a combination of estrogen dominance and or progesterone inadequacy. So progesterone inadequacy can come from things like prediabetes is probably the highest on the list, because the elevated insulin starts to affect the ovaries. The ovaries don't produce as much progesterone, and you get inadequate luteal production of progesterone, and you have this yin and yang balance that is off kilter. Estrogen dominance, geez, oh Pete, can come from all of these environmental estrogens that we're exposed to, things like constipation, improper detoxification. It's a mess, but there are things that can help restore that balance. And that was this study. It was the Nurses' Health Study. They followed for 24 years some 82,000 premenopausal women. Over that time frame, 3,810 of them developed or were diagnosed with endometriosis. So they looked at dietary patterns and how much they had an influence on developing endometriosis. And as expected, the Western diet was awful. 27% higher risk of being diagnosed with endometriosis. The alternative healthy eating index, which is not a bad approach, but think about fruits and vegetables, nuts, whole grains, no processed foods or less processed foods. It's a pretty big scoring process, but they were 14% or 13% less likely to be diagnosed with endometriosis. So between the spread of those two, that becomes quite a bit. And they looked at other things like the DASH diet, which I'm not a terribly big fan of, and an estrogen-associated pattern diet, and a pro-inflammatory diet. Those in the pro-inflammatory diet did show an increased risk of around 10%, but the prudent and the DASH and the estrogen associated pattern did not have much of an effect. So the take-home message is that if you deal with endometriosis, it's not a matter of just going on the birth control pill to stop your cycle, because if you don't fix that, ultimately down the line things like infertility are going to be a problem if you'd ever like to have children. Forget the pain aspects of it, but the reality is you're off kilter. Your hormone, your progesterone, estrogen, your yin-yang is off balance, and lifestyle can go a long way towards bringing that back into balance. Of course, it doesn't mention exercise in here, but that's obviously on the list. Think about things that will pull you back from diabetes, because diabetes affects the progesterone level, and that affects all things hormonal, menstrual related in a woman's body. As always, I'll post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.